Hello, everybody. This is Ashish here, welcoming you to the second season of The Inside World with my good friend Natalia. Hey, Natalia, how is it going there?
Hi, it's going really well. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining for the third episode for this season. And this particular episode is influenced by Natalia's one video that she posted on YouTube, and it was called Creative Business Planning. And it was an amazing framework that I kind of like, and I feel that all artists should actually consider doing that while implementing business planning for their creative side of things. So when I'm looking at Natalia right now, I think I met at Natalia and Sarang in 2014, right?
Yeah,
Is it 14 or 15? 14.
14.
14, yeah. So she was playing for this amazing band called Pinch. So when Pinch got in, they would have like this crazy time signatures and like jazz chords and punking it up. I'm like, okay, cool. You had a vocal processor on stage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is really nice. So I've been following the entire band and her entire artist career for some time right now. And I've seen her transform as an illustrator right now, and it's amazing the kind of videos that she posts on a frequent basis in order to educate different aspects of an illustrator's life and their journey. So, Natalia, thanks for joining this particular episode. I am pretty much thrilled to have you on board. So,
Thanks for having me, dude.
pleasure is all mine, actually. So, when we start off this episode, one thing that I always ask is, there's always a crazy experience from the journey of every artist that's out there. So, with respect to you, you've started as a musician and then you started your illustrator career. So, what's the story behind it?
I was reflecting on this after we spoke last time, and really it came down to being able to do music and art and choosing. So I think when I was about 17, I chose music very intentionally, and I was like, I'm gonna have a band, I'm gonna do these things, I'm gonna learn how to play XYZ, teach music, write music, all of the stuff. And I was always doing art on the side, especially for band posters. I mean, who's going to do that stuff for you, right? So I wanted it to be like, oh, this is going to reflect the true art of this band. And we used to have some really awful posters. It didn't really say graphic design as much as it said this is a band trying to be really weird. And we were, and it worked, and it was great. So when I stopped singing and all of the things that happened that led me to that, the next best thing for me was art. I could only express myself in that way. And one of the pivotal things was also me being diagnosed clinically depressed. So I felt I need to fight this. It was like high functioning, like it's on me. I own this depression and I need to deal with it in the way that I can understand. And so I pursued art. And so I made a lot of depression comics and a lot of stories around what I was feeling and not knowing how to feel at the time. So that kind of gradually grew into like keeping regular sketchbooks and doing a lot of art until I finally decided maybe I can do digital art. And that got me started. And it looked like people were interested in what I was doing. And slowly I began to explore that in a very serious way.
Definitely, it's like you mentioned, right? Like you started off by designing weird posters for a band, and then somehow it worked. At the end of the day, art is always subjective. Sometimes you find the right weird people, and they vibe to the weird stuff that you're posting out, and it's really nice. Like most of the transformation journeys that artists have would have like a strong connection to their personal life experiences that would have molded them, and it's really nice that certain experience of yours have molded your path towards a proper illustrator at the end of the day. Now so when I look at your illustrator career, right, I think you've had multiple experiences throughout your time working, and some things you would have done the right way, some things you would have done horribly, and you would have had crazy experience. You're like, okay, I'm not doing that again. And something that I really liked is that you've made a framework out of your entire experiences into a creative business planning doc. So in terms of where you can understand your goals, what your foundation is, how you're going to make revenue, how you're going to sustain the revenue, having a routine, and how do you make sure that you take your rest for your mental and physical health altogether. But I want to jump into your perspective right now. Okay, so with respect to, understanding on how to plan your creative hustles, how would you go about it?
So I've done this creative business plan, like you mentioned, and it's really cool how you've found me based on that. Because every time I see my videos, I'm like, somebody is watching this. I know somebody is watching this. So thank you for that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this looks like from an artist's perspective. And I decided to go back to when I started freelancing in 2016. That was quite exciting. And it was on and off from that time. You know, I tried different things in between that. I worked corporate, I juggled many things, but I always had this idea that I wanted to be my own captain of the ship, whatever I was going to do. I had these things that I wasn't able to do in a corporate job or in any sort of like office setting. So the foundation for the planning would be to ease out of a day job. And if you want to see the current foundation, you can watch that video. So we won't even get to what I'm doing right now. We'll just talk about a freelancer beginning their career. So the foundation is to ease out of a day job. And the theme would be to have sustainable growth. So whenever I look back at it, I'm able to think, okay, does this align with the theme of the year? And it doesn't have to be the whole year. You can break it down to a few months, anything like that. So to keep it really simple, I've broken it down into three main categories: revenue, routine, and rest. Now, obviously, revenue is what makes you money, right? So you have a bunch of different things. I've got work, the day job that I'm in, commissioned work that people ask me to do, graphic design that includes like proper graphic design work that I used to do at the time. And commissions would mean like comics and illustrations and things like that. And also exhibits of my work, where there'd be an artist collective and a flea market, and we'd get together and sell stuff. It wasn't always lucrative, but it's something. And then we go to routine. Routine is what makes you better. I think of this as stuff that may not directly contribute to your revenue, but it definitely cultivates you as an individual. So you may have, going to the office as one thing, because I didn't really enjoy going to the office, to be honest. So I put it in my routine because I'm like, I have to do this. It's part of what I do. Saving money, paying rent and bills, hanging out with friends. That's part of what makes you better. Maybe hanging out with friends is part of your rest column. But for me, it's like, this is something that I'm doing. I'm intentionally being here. I'm being present. I'm not just like goofing off. And then there's rest, which I have prioritized for a long time. And I know there was a time that I didn't prioritize that at all. So rest is essential, because without it, you lead to burnout. And so in the rest column, I have watching movies, having night outs, cooking, just fun stuff that keeps you rested. And I feel like rest isn't just goofing off and taking a nap or something. For me, rest is quite intentionally not thinking about work. Because if you're someone who wants to freelance, you're going to have work on your mind all the time. There's that saying that says, I quit a 9 to 5, but now I work 24/7. Because like I didn't want to be working a 9 to 5, but now I work 24/7. So that's the whole crux of it. And I deliberately kept it simple so that when I come back to it, I don't have to think, oh my goodness, I'm not doing all of this stuff, and what am I missing out on, and all of that stuff. Instead, it's really easy to just look at it and be like, oh yeah, oh, routine. I haven't been practicing my piano for a while, or hey, when was the last time I cooked like a nice meal? So it's easy to look at. So there's your theme for the year, the foundation, why you even chose that theme, and your revenue, routine, and rest.
Wonderful, because something that I really liked about this particular thing is you're focusing on multiple avenues to make sure that your growth as an artist is sustainable.
Yeah.
Because it's not just sustainability. I feel we could also focus on profitability per piece that you do, because the biggest challenging factor that Indian parents had in order to let their kids choose an artist career is that they were very flimsy about understanding the profitability and sustainability of art career. So when you
Yeah.
have a framework that decides, okay, like I'm gonna try to bucket in what are my revenue streams, how would I make a routine out of it, and how am I gonna make sure that I don't burn out. Like you said, I quit a 9 to 5, now I'm working 24/7 because I'm an independent artist. Like that's what I do. Like you said, I think it's very important to understand, sometimes in order to preserve your mental health as well as physical health, it's important to not think about work at all. Rest doesn't mean that, I like how you put it. Rest doesn't mean that you're not sleeping. Rest doesn't mean that you're sleeping, but it means that you're not thinking about work altogether. And it's very important to have a timeout altogether. And wonderfully put, Natalia. I think I really liked how you've conceptualized the framework in such a way that it's more clear, and using your younger persona is wonderful, because right now I feel most people that would be looking at this particular video would be people who are already working a day job. And one of the craziest questions that we're having is, okay, TK, like, should I have a full-time career in art? If I'm having a full-time career, then how do I do it? So having that stable foundation, like you said, how do I balance this from my day-to-day job? And how do I make a decision to jump in case if that happens? But wonderfully put. So coming back to my final section for our particular talk, from the time that you've been an illustrator for the past couple of years, you would have had multiple learnings from your journey as an illustrator, right? So if there is somebody out there who's having your same kind of a journey, and who's in the same kind of shoes as you were a couple of years back, what are some important things that they should keep in mind?
All right, all right. So some of the things that I've learned have been able to I've been able to coagulate them into one simple motto, if you would say, which is to play the long game. Because when you're trying to measure metrics, and you're like, how much was I making last year? How much am I making now? Can I continue this sustainably? Should I be doing XYZ? But you're playing the long game. Because if you're thinking of day to day success, it's not going to be evident. Because it's like putting on weight slowly. At some point, you're going to realize, dude, that shirt does not fit me anymore. But you wouldn't have known that like a few weeks ago, because it's happening gradually. But you have to play the long game. So whenever I look at this thing, I think, okay, I'm going to set my goal as 3 years. If after 3 years, my YouTube channel isn't getting anywhere, then I have reason to step back and be like, yo, this is not work. But if you quit on day 3, or even on month 5, you're still not going to know what it could have been. So every learning that I've taken has come from that, because I'm like, I like writing a lot. I like drawing quite a bit. So I'm able to see the progress. I look at my old sketchbooks and I'm like, bro, no scene. But I look at that stuff now and I'm like, I still don't think it's great, but it's definitely better than where I was earlier. I'm growing. I'm able to see that. And I think to not be complex, just play the long game. Don't give up. Stick to the thing that you're doing, because it will be worth it. And then if after 3 years you're like, really, there's nothing, which is highly unlikely, then you change your trajectory and, work things around. But otherwise, play the long game, everybody. When I think of the things that I've learned over time, I I know that I've picked up a lot of things from reading and just trying out. But if I were to summarize a lot of these things, it would be customer centricity, to focus on people, because at the end of the day, that's who matters. You're no longer becoming someone who is uh, a self-sustained unit. You are fueled by the people who patronize your art, who look at what you're doing and think of, okay, that's something I'd like to support. And even now more so than before, like we're thinking of 1,000 true fans, at the specific things that people bring to your business. So that's really important. And to have a portfolio, I know this is really hard for a lot of people, but it takes time. You can give it a good amount of time to say, okay, I've done those kinds of projects and I really enjoy it. For me, that was comics. It took years to get to the place of understanding that I love to draw comics, and I will happily, draw comics for the rest of my days, tell stories like that. And I've noticed that that is also the same case with my music. I love writing music instead of just like performing it, because I've tasted both. But I enjoyed writing. I enjoy songwriting more than I enjoy performance. So I'm starting to see that what makes me tick is telling stories. So in my portfolio, I'm going to put a lot of comic work because I want to get that kind of work. I may be able to do a bunch of other stuff, but I want to focus on the thing that I love to do and the thing that I want to be known for, the thing that I want more work from, the thing from where I want. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So when you're playing the long game, I think you identify the kinds of people who would really connect with your art, especially the ones who have or who are in a place that you used to be in. So for me, that's really valuable because I want to make art specifically for anyone who's dealing with addiction, because I dealt with so much of that that I feel like I have a few nuggets of wisdom. But more than that, I think everything addiction related is available in different formats. So to have comics and to have stories about it is relatable. And then you're able to connect with someone else. And I mean, that's how you make friends, right? You go out and you say, hey, this happened to me. And then someone else is like, that happened to me too. And then you're friends. I mean, not all the time, but sometimes. So I want to be making art for people who connect on that level. So I have an audience that I'm going for. I'm not just making art with like really generic themes. That would be a lot easier, especially if I want to make an income off of this like full time. But I want to be specific because that helps me really build an identity as an artist. And I also think that when we're looking at all of this, especially when we're looking at it for the long game, you need to be persevering, like I said, but you also need to give yourself some leeway. You need to take a break once in a while. You need to go easy once in a while. And hustle mindset is a big deal right now. And everyone's like, oh, this is my side hustle, and this is, and it becomes really stressful for people who are not thinking like that. And so you don't have to think like that. You can just go easy on yourself, but focus on what you're doing, stick it out for the long game. A lot of people who really make it in this industry are people who just stick to their guns, persevere through the worst, and that makes them who they are.
Your point of most of these people who are prominent in the industry are the ones who stuck to their guns. This is like a classic problem that all strategy consultants have. Actually, we suggest a strategy to a particular client, and they'd be like, okay, we'll implement it for 1 week, but if it's not showing results, we're going to just get out of it. So the thing is that, you have to stick to the strategy for quite some time, and then only your entire process would actually adapt to it. And that's when you find results coming up. So similarly, when you said, when you're sticking to the long run, you kind of focus on something consistently, even though you don't find the results right now. It's more like an exponential curve that happens through the as time goes by. Even though the output that comes will be very less in the initial years or months, but eventually it's going to be an exponential increase in terms of the output that you have once you're consistent to the strategy. But thank you so much for your time, Natalia. Like, this was like amazing just to deconstruct your thinking and break it down brick by brick to understand like how you can strategize properly from a creative standpoint. And it was a pleasure hosting you for this episode, and I hope to see some amazing content coming up. But in the long run, do we have anything planned for your YouTube channel? Like, what can we expect in the coming days?
With YouTube, I have been doing this for a year, and I've been experimenting. Okay, I never picked up a camera because I was in Christ College and everybody had a camera, and I was like, I will not be that guy. So now I don't even have a camera and I have a YouTube channel, and I've been organizing the content that I put out to incorporate the graphic novel that I'm working on. So instead of keeping it to an exclusive audience, which was the case earlier on Patreon, I'm kind of opening that out to the public, for all of my 200 subscribers. So sweet. So I'm going to be putting out more content about making comics, storyboarding, writing, scripting, characterization, original characters and designing them. So there's a lot in the works with that.
Wonderful. Something that you said, right? Like when you studied in Christ, all Tom, Dick, and Harry had a camera, and you were one person who didn't. Right now, you have a YouTube channel without having a camera. It's crazy. I think a bad carpenter always blames tools, but it depends upon how you use your tools to come, get the output. I'll give you a quick heads up. Like, the entire Inside World was produced on Zoom and PPTs.
Yo.
So I prefer I feel Adobe Photoshop is a bit heavy application for designing, but I find PPT is much efficient and much flexible in terms of designing my creatives. When people hear this, people are like, what are you saying, bro? Like, you use MS Office for your production? I'm like, yeah, and Premiere Pro here and there.
How do you use audio? I mean, how do you do video and audio?
No, I use Premiere Pro for production at the end of the day. But anyway, so like I said, it's always, it doesn't matter your tools. It depends upon your hustle for some people, perseverance for another people.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, thank you so much for your time, Natalia. I hope you have a wonderful time ahead, and I'm looking forward for your amazing content coming up.
Thanks, Ashish. This was fun. See you in the virtual world.